Hello friends, Tanya here with another video, and this time I am doing my October 2024 Spellbinders Club Kits of the Month. We are doing 10 cards. We're going to start out doing the prep work for a bunch of things. We've got the die of the month here called Festive Friends. And I've die cut all the pieces, and I die cut them from white, and we're going to do some ink blending. I'm showing you the colors that I chose to use this time, and we're going to pull out Lost Shadow to do the contrasting colors for the insides of our little bear's ears and his muzzle. I'm going to ink blend some Salvage Patina on the sweater, the main body of the sweater. Just using my mini ink blending sponges here. These are very well seasoned. I recently, probably a month and a half ago, went through and did some refreshing of all of my ink pads. I have found that sometimes when they get dry, they really just need a little refresher. There is a commercial product you can purchase that's water and glycerin. I personally just added about a tablespoon of glycerin to my bottle of water, and I've been using that, and it's working great. This is the stencil of the month. We're going to create a sweater pattern on here. There are two different patterns in this month's stencil set. I believe it's called Baubles and I can't remember. I will show you it again, I promise. I'm trying to figure out how to lay this second layer on the panel here that I've already ink blended with the first panel, and I just went over the top of that again with Salvage Patina. Now I've got prized ribbon that we're adding the second layer with, and I think that pops really nicely on the Salvage Patina and milled lavender. No, shaded lilac that I blended. I like that turquoise and purple together in that blend. I think it makes a really pretty blend. I'm gluing the collar for the sweater on. And now we need to assemble our little bear's head. Now I'm choosing to make a polar bear with it this time. So he's got a white main part of his head. We've got this little die cut bar that works perfect to put black behind his eyes. I love that Spellbinders has started doing die cuts that fit right behind fallout spots where you want another color. So you don't have to fussy cut little pieces to put behind them. Next, we're going to adhere the muzzle to the bear's face. And you can see how that just a little bit of shading from the Lost Shadow makes a nice contrast on his face. And now it's time to add the little black nose. There are embossed marks on that piece that show you where the nose goes. Nose goes. Next, we'll attach the sweater to, oh, no, we won't. I am going to test that pink marker on the back to make sure it's the color I want, and I'm going to add some pink cheeks on our cute little bear's face. Are there circles cut? Yeah, so I believe there is a coordinating die that you could add those pink cheeks if you want, but I personally don't like to see that extra layer on my animal faces, so I like to just add the pink with a marker. Next up is our cute little penguin. He can be sitting on top of your polar bear's head or standing next to him. It's got this cute little sway and reach with one hand, and like he's catching himself with the other. There are, of course, some embossed marks on that black body to help you figure out where all of the other pieces go. Now I'm going to attach his cute little feet. I've added a dab of glue on the main part of his body where each of those feet go, and I believe those dies are exactly the same, so you don't have to be too fussy about which one goes on which foot. I tried tucking it behind the white for his belly, but that just looks silly. So I pulled it back out over the top and glued that down. Added the second foot. And now I'll add just a little dot of glue on the embossed area where the beak goes and pop that in place. He is really easy to put together, and he is so cute. Next, he has a little stocking cap, and I decided to make it look rather Santa-ish with red main body and a white trim. just going to, whoops, have to get that little ball to stay on there. We'll just add a little line of glue on the top of, or on the back of the hat, and add that to the top of our cute little penguin's head. You wouldn't even have to put the hat on, but it is cute with the hat. Now we've got our two main pieces assembled. Next we have these strings of lights. There's a small portion and a large portion. And the lights on each of these strands are different sizes. You can see I've cut these from many different colors. Each die cuts enough, so there's one die with enough bulbs to to make one string of light. So if you wanted to go with just one color, you could get all of the bulbs you need for one string on one pass with your die. I love that. Now the smaller strand has, I think, 6 lights, and the larger strand, I think, has 8. So we're going to just go through and add all of the lights on the larger strand, and they're not significantly larger. It does give a little bit of the forced perspective if you wanted it to, so the longer strand is a little bigger and it would seem closer to you than the small one. And as you can see, it's super easy to add these to the string in a pretty fast fashion. I cut out lots of these colors. I just wanted a colorful strand of lights. Now, one of the best things about these little triangle trays is they are easy to help pick up small pieces and scoop them back in to your containers. Next, we have this cute little star. It has 2 pieces. It's got the, I don't know, it kind of looks like a wand to me, but the star at the top of that is just a little smaller than the yellow star, so it makes it really easy to attach the yellow star on the top. I mean, you can make it whatever color you want. I made mine yellow. And here you can see that these strands of lights wrap nicely around our bear. You can make it look like it's doing an S-shaped swoop from the star behind the bear and then around the front of the bear. And look how nicely it slides down to make just a circle of lights around the bear. Very quick and easy. We're next going to move on to the large die of the month. This is Cozy Toes Slippers. It is so cute. I was so excited to play with this one. Oh my gosh. So I've got all the pieces cut out here, and it has a sentiment that says warm and cozy wishes with the banner die. You've got 2 pieces to that banner die, and cuts the word and the banner. First, we're going to start with our cute little bunny. There's this black bar that fits on the backs of 3 of the heads, or the slipper styles here. This is the only one that little center larger piece is necessary for, because it covers both the eyes and the nose. And we have these cute bunny ears for the inside of the bunny ears, and I colored those pink. Now I die cut all of these from white cardstock, and then all of these pieces, and then colored them with my Copic marker. I chose some, I think it's, those were like BG11 and BG13 probably for the hat. And I did go over the trim and the puff for the hat with Clear Wink of Stella to add some extra sparkliness to that. That pretty much assembled the bunny part. Here I am coloring the sole of the shoe and the part that is the inside of the slipper. Sole of the slipper and inside of the slipper. I'm adding a little shading to our slipper. You don't have to put these fuzzy little heads on the slippers. They are pretty cute just by themselves. They kind of look like a pair of Uggs too if you wanted. Now we're going to add that little piece that shows the sole of the slipper on the main body, and we'll take that other piece that I colored a slightly darker color because it would be the inside of the slipper, and we'll tack that to the back of this slipper piece. And that completes a slipper without any character on it. Then you can just glue your character head on. Just adding a little liquid glue here. You could pop it up with some dimension if you wanted. And there is a pair of bunny slippers. Next, we're going to do the monster slippers. I've colored this I use some ink blended cardstock here for both the main body and for the toes. I've used a slightly darker, I think it's Villainous Potion and Seedless Preserves are the colors that I use for those. We'll glue the toes to the front of this slipper. I think this is so cute. Oh my gosh. And can you see those lines there where the talons will, or the claws, however you want to call them, attach? We add the back of the slipper there, or the inside at the top. Now the talons or the claws are pretty easy to figure out where they go. Just follow the shape of the indent, and there are 3 different claws that are pretty easy to add to your little slipper. Next up is the penguin. We'll again use that, I guess it was 4, everything but the monster claws. Oh no, wait, I don't actually need it. The base of the penguin is black, so you don't need that bar behind the eyes for the penguin. I suppose you could use it if you want. It would fit, but you really don't need it. We'll add the little beak for your penguin. Oh, he's so cute. I have a soft spot in my heart for penguins. They are so adorable. I think all of these pieces are so cute. We'll add the little ear muff puffs there. I've colored them pink. Adding just a little bit of glue to the sides of each of those muffs so they can go over the ears. Well, where the ears would be. And then I've lightly colored these slippers pink, and I'm adding a little bit of pink blush to the cheeks. There's no dent on these. Oh, there is on the bunny. Is there on the... There's not on the penguin, but I'm adding a little pink to the cheeks of the bunnies. I'd forgotten to do that. I'm sure there's a die that creates a circle die for that, but again, I prefer the look of just adding a little marker to it. We'll add a little bit of glue for that top of the slipper there. And we'll put the sole on our slipper. There is an embossed line from the die on there that helps guide where that should meet the slipper also. We'll add a little glue to the back of the penguin head, and there we have our little penguin slippers. Am I going to show you the second one too? No. There's the pair. Next we have our Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. For this little guy, I used some brown cardstock from my stash. I think this is an orphan color. I don't know where I got it or if I could find it again. But I added some shading with a Copic marker to the slipper part. And you can see we have inserts for the back of the ear. Now, I put this one on backwards. The point that's pointing towards the head should have gone the other way. But you know what? I made it work anyway. Then we have our shiny red nose. This was some red cardstock that I spritzed with Yuletide Distress Mica Stain Spray. We have our cute little antlers that I die cut out of some speckly white cardstock. And these are pretty easy to line up. I've seen other people put the antlers on, instead of behind the head, on the front of the head. I like it behind the head. You could do it either way, whichever way floats your boat. We'll add the insert for the slipper here, which I did color with the Copic marker to make it just a little darker. And the sole of the slipper just under the toe. I like that contrast between the black and the brown. Kind of reminds me of a reindeer leg and foot. Huh. And you can see that there's a hole in the nose that should be another color. I do come back later and use a white gel pen to add that color. This is the ankle. You can see some embossing here that shows where it would line up against the slipper here. That's where the curved line comes in. And then there's a straight line above that that's indented into the paper. And that will be where the pant leg will line up. I do add the back of the slipper also, just in case you can see that. And you can kind of see that around the back of the leg. We'll add the pant leg here. And I chose to use some of the Oh Joy paper pad. I I have a video coming up with some fun stuff with the paper and the ephemera and stuff from the Oh Joy scrapbooking kit. It's super cute, so cute. Stay tuned for that. I did use that though for the pants. There's this fun Christmas tree paper in it. Mr. Santa has a beard. You can see I put the black behind the eyes, added his beard, and popped his nose on. Again, he has a little dimple on his nose that looks like supposed to be a shine spot. I will come back later with a white gel pen and add that. You could just cut two of the noses and flip it so that, because it's a pretty even oval, I think it would be the same no matter which way you put it. You could use that to back it and have a white area there. I chose to keep it simple and use my white gel pen. I made this cute little hat, and now one of the cool things of this die set is that it has two main bodies of the hats. So one's pointing to the left and one is pointing to the right. So when you put your slippers together as a pair, they're the pom-poms are in the opposite directions. I thought that was pretty clever. Next, we have the stitching die of the month, Merry and Bright Cloche. Makes this beautiful cloche with all kinds of stitching detail you can add. I again die cut it with white cardstock. We're going to use rustic wilderness and pine needles to ink blend this particular tree. Now, I did really love this tree, so I cut a bunch of them, and you'll see lots of them put to good use in this video. I like to add a little shading with a little bit darker ink on the bottom and then blending it into the lighter color at the top. Now I have some green, I think this is crochet thread here, but you could use DMC embroidery floss. I would use like 3 strands if I was using embroidery floss. And I'm just going to go from top to bottom over and over again. I like the dotted detail on this, or the pierced detail on this die cut. You wouldn't have to do the stitching on it, but I think it really adds a nice touch. So yeah, why not? I'm going to show you how to do the stitching on this. Does not take very long. I could have gone with just showing you 1 or 2 stitches, but it's nice to see the whole thing. Almost done. One more stitch. I had secured the first end with some of the Best Ever Craft tape in the 1/8 inch, or is it 1/4? The skinnier width, and then I'll use the same type of tape to secure the other end. I did see another way to stitch this trunk. I'm just going to do the straight up and down bars. You can do X's across this too if you'd like. That was a pretty clever way to do it. Or you can leave it just the way it is. You don't need to stitch this. It's pretty even without the stitching. So when I do these straight up and down lines, I don't carry the thread all the way across on the back. I try to go down the adjacent hole when I do those so that I don't have a lot of extra thread on the back. So we just have 2 straight lines instead of a mirror image of the front on the back of our stitching. It doesn't have to be pretty, but sometimes it's nice to not have that extra bulk when you're trying to adhere things later. There's the trunk of our tree. I think that looks pretty. And both of these, no, I don't think the trunk has a backer, but the Christmas tree has a backer. Next, we have this little round piece that I envision as a glow around the star behind the top of the tree, but you could use it as ornaments or the topper itself. I'm going to stitch a little star on the front of it using this gold sewing thread. This is really fine, so I generally double it over. I've knotted the end, and ideally what I'm going to be able to do is when I come back down, go between the 2 threads and capture that knot and just kind of use this loop to secure the thread. It can be a little fussy. And then we're just going to go out in radiating fashion all the way around to create a star effect. or snowflake. If you change your colors up, you could make it into a snowflake. These small round pieces can be pretty fussy, but they can really turn out pretty. Have you been enjoying your stitching dies of the month? Do you stitch with them, or do you just use the details, or does it just depend on your mood? I find these stitched elements really relaxing. Often I will cut a bunch out and then sit down and do the stitching while I'm watching a video. And yeah, I get done and I wish I had more pieces to stitch, even if I don't know if I'll actually use them. Down to the last couple stitches here. After I did the star shape from the center out, I decided to do a line all the way around the star too, to add a little bit of a square motif behind this. You'll have to let me know what you think after you take a look at it with the finished product. It's kind of hard to see in the video right now because it's not as close as it could be. We'll just add a knot to the back here. It's so small back there that it's a little tough to use a piece of tape. So I'll just do a good old double knot in the back here. And then we'll snip off the extra thread. And there's the finished product. Pop that on top of the tree. Next we have the pretty little base of the snow globe or cloche, and I'm going to again use the gold sewing thread to do the stitching on this. Tying a knot in the bot. This is the stitching thread that I use, just the Coats brand metallic decorative sewing thread in gold. I did tie a knot in this. I think ultimately though I end up taping it because yeah, kind of a pain. It was nice to have the knot though to keep things under control. Yep, we'll just take a little piece of tape. Got to find the end. And then I'll use my Best Ever Craft tape to tack that down. And these are separate. They almost look fan-like to me. So it's separate radiating fanned areas on each of these scallops. All the way across. How many scallops are there on this? I hope you find this relaxing. Maybe now is a good time to talk about the fact that this is so late in the month. Oh, I did not show you the whole thing, but that's okay. I had a challenging month again. I got sick. Just about, I think it was on like the 5th or 6th of the month. I was just about done. I think I had 7 of my cards done and I got sick. 6 or 7. Might have been 8 even. And I just could not get out of bed for about a week. And then I had to go work. So yeah, that eats up the time awfully fast. So I came back from my latest stretch of work, which I ended up having to call in sick. So I only worked 1 shift and wished I had stayed home anyway. Why do we do that to ourselves? I'm feeling a little better today. Like, because I came home, what is today? Today is Friday. I came home Thursday. Yes. Finished up I did 1 card yesterday and I did 1 this morning, and now I'm doing the recording, and I feel a little better today than I did yesterday, which is good because Wednesday when I worked I felt pretty crummy. Finished my shift, went back to the house, slept for almost 12 hours, drove home and was ready for a nap again. Oh well, what can I say? October can be a blessing and a curse for me between my asthma and all of the crud that's going around. I tested myself 3 times. I did not catch COVID. My husband's worried that he caught it. We hope not. He had a coworker that got COVID, flu A, and flu B all at once. She must feel awful. I feel sorry for her. She's a sweet lady too. I used to work with her before she worked with my husband. It is a small world. My husband and I are both nurses. Yeah. All right. The background here for the cloche, it has 2 dies. There's a die that cuts out the starry portion or the snow portion, that drops into the base, and there's a solid piece that just cuts a solid base. I'm using some salvaged patina, Mermaid Lagoon, and prize ribbon to do my ink blending here. I want a nice starry night look going here. Just going to get a good blend over this cardstock, and I did use some scraps of heavyweight cardstock because, well, frankly, I have a lot of scraps from cutting paper down to make different size cards. Next, I'm going to pull out that clear Wink of Stella to add some sparkliness to this piece of cardstock that I die cut the Merry and Bright for. Now this goes right above that fancy stitched scallop area to create a base inside your cloche to give it kind of a 3D effect. And there are two sentiments you can drop into this die to create Merry and Bright, or Sending Wishes, I believe is what it said. No, Sending Cheer. I'm peeking. Yes, Sending Cheer. Now it's time to glue these pieces together. I'm unclogging my fine tip glue bottle here. I have Barely Art Precision Glue in here, which is my favorite glue. You can put whatever glue you want in because you get these bottles empty. I love that they're easy to squeeze and have that nice fine line of glue, which means it's not going to come through these little holes in our die cut. Now that we have those two pieces assembled, we'll add our base to this cloche. Now in the future, I just add the glue to the not stitched portion and put the piece down on top. It works quite nicely. I did cut this base from some gold, was it matte gold maybe, from the Treasured cardstock gold collection. I'm assembling the back of the tree, and I decided I really liked, was it on this one? Probably not. I did do it a little different on some of the future trees. I'll show you that later. I'm adding that little white piece with the sentiment just above the base of the cloche. Here's the tree trunk. I'm just going to center that on the white portion above the sentiment. And then we'll add our tree. Just adding a little glue there and popping that right in the middle here. Straightening my tree trunk a little bit. And then we're going to add this stitched circle. I'm going to tuck it behind the top of that tree. There is one more die cut piece that we can add to this, and you could leave this just as is. I think that's really pretty too. But we have this little star tree topper die cut, and I think I die cut that out of some gold foil cardstock, the same gold cardstock as I cut the base out of, and that turned out just beautiful. We're going to move on to the clear Stampin' Die of the month. It's called Christmas Besties, I think. And these little critters are actually two critters to each stamp. You could cut them apart if that works better for you, but here you have two critters on each stamp. I'm stamping these on some white cardstock. I used some alcohol marker friendly ink. And you can see that the stamping is not the best, but that's okay. We're going to do my favorite trick later. And I'm going through and coloring all of these little critters using my Copic markers. I've got, I think that's a W0, and now I'm using a W1 to do our darker tone for the white areas. I'm using a light pink for all of the cheeks and the insides of the ears. Then for our little snowman, I'm going to use some tones of mid to dark blues for his scarf and his hat. Just using 2 shades here for each color. There isn't room for a lot of shading on all of the parts here. I'm using I think it's a neutral gray, a dark neutral gray for the buttons. And now it's time to move on to the bunny. Oh, I did use an orange for the carrot nose for our cute little snowman. I'm going in with some aqua colors here for the hat and the scarf, and you're going to notice that I'm using similar colors to what I use for the slipper heads, because we have a penguin head, we have a bunny head, which coordinates with those little slippers. I thought it would be a cute idea to coordinate those. I might even use them on the same cards. For our bear, we're using red tones for the hat and the scarf. You saw that the bunny was holding two little treats there, and I colored those like cupcakes with a little mistletoe on the top of one and a peppermint on the top of the other. The bear is holding a stack of presents, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do this, but I was. I colored these. There's a striped package, a polka dot package, and two solids. And I'm just using reds and greens in like two shades of each color. And I was able to even do the dots and the stripes and the bows very carefully, just using the tip of the marker. Then our Mr. Penguin, we're using some neutral, I think this is N5 for the dark or the lighter of the gray tones for his body. You don't want to go too dark with your gray tones for anything that's black, or your outlines won't show up. I think that's, was that T6 by using neutrals and toner grays? Okay, it worked. I'm using pinks here for the scarf and the earmuffs. A little bit of orange for the beak and the feet. Come in and use the green and red for the holly on the top of our cute little, I think this looks like a sugar plum, or that's how I'm coloring it, or a bread pudding, or a spice cake, and it has some white frosting. Just cleaning up a little bit of color that I got where I didn't want, using my colorless blender or a W0, one of the two. Now I have a piece of clear acetate just to make sure that my images are exactly where I want them to double stamp. I do not want to mess these up. They were not exactly in the same place, so I am using this clear piece of acetate to help me line these up completely. And then I'll add the magnet back in here, and we're going to have perfectly stamped images. This time I'm using my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I'm inking up these stamps and stamping them over the marker. I think this just really adds a nice crisp detail to my images. And then of course I'm going to use some embossing powder. It's nice to have that nice raised shiny line for these characters, but I also like that the VersaFine ink won't smear. So I'm just going to heat set that. I used some clear embossing powder to add to cover the VersaFine Clair. And I love the magic of heat embossing. It will never get old. It is what pulled me into paper crafting from the very beginning, because it was so magical. Look at that. Beautiful. Nice and crisp. Then there are coordinating dies for all of the characters and for all of the sentiments in this stamp set, which you know how I feel about a die cut sentiment. I just love it. We'll just add a little bit of Best Ever Craft tape to tape those down. Now, though they're a little too close together to use both dies for each set of images at the same time, but that's okay. We can just run them through twice. And there are our 4 colored characters. Now I'm coming in with a Jelly Roll Stardust pen here to add sparkle to the frosting. I added it to the top of the earmuff, the piece that connects them. I'm going to add it to the little puff at the top of our bunny's hat, and to the frosting on his little cupcakes, and to the puffs on his, oh, there must have been like little dangly puffs by his ears. We'll add it to the trim on the snowman's hat. I did go and put a swoosh down on his body. I highlighted the buttons, and I even drew some stripes on the snowman's scarf. Now, truth be told, I made 5 of each of these characters, so some of the rest of the snowmen didn't get the extra lines on the scarf and stuff. I'm adding the Stardust Sparkle or Stardust Jelly Roll pen to the ribbons on all of these presents, to the polka dots, and of course the trim on his hat also. We have two red, no, it's just the bear. I did color a brown bear too. I just didn't show it here. You'll see it later. There is our sparkled up penguin and our sparkled up snowman and our sparkled up little bunny. These are so adorable. Next, we're going to use the Better Press of the Month, Design a Plaid. This has several pieces here. We're also, as long as we're messing with it, we're going to use the club bonus, which is a grouping of sentiments that coordinate with the theme of this whole month, and coordinating dies. I decided to take these Better Press plates, which the add-on set is Better Press plates, and the sentiments. There's a block of sentiments with a coordinating die that cuts all of them at once. And we're going to use the foil that came with this month's club kits, and I think it's Aura Sparkle. And we'll we'll Glimmer Hot Foil those. I did it on white, and I'm going to do it again on black. My system here for this particular setup, I put a piece of copy paper that is A2 sized down on my platform and then lay everything on it so that when I have the foil down and all of the plates down, I can carefully lay the piece of paper right where it needs to go. Next up, we're going to do some I'm going to try to be tricky here. I'm going to try to do a plaid on a 5x7 piece of watercolor cardstock. I have some strawberry Better Press ink here, and one of the longer pieces. I should have slid that down a little further. What you going to do? So my paper slid a little bit. I lined the excess ink on that platen chase. You know I'm never going to get it right. The clear plastic part that I taped my paper to. And I'm going to add some extra pieces of tape because I want my paper to stay where it's at so I can redo this here. I add some more ink, and I'm going to rotate this and get some stripes on the other side. Now I'm just going to slide this down, paying attention to where it's lined up on the grid of the base here. And I'm going to add some more ink, about as long as I need it to go. I'm staying within the 5x7 paper guidelines, and we'll rotate this and do it again so that we complete the stripe on the other side. This is giving it a very rustic feel because these have some unevenness in the tones and just a slight jaggedness to the edge of the lines. I think it turned out great personally. Going to add a middle wide stripe down here. Just cleaning up the base there so I don't get any ink where I don't want it. And then I really should have just slid this up a little further. You're going to see why. Because I turned the whole thing thinking, I'll just do the same thing I did with the sides. I'll just rotate it and run it through again to cover the spot I missed. Well, guess what? We've got wide stripe on one side, narrow stripe on the other. We're just going to go with it. Next, I have the mulberry ink. I think that's what it's called. And we're inking up some cross stripes, the narrow stripes. These are the longer versions. There are long and short. And there is a Better Press registration for an A2 size. If you wanted to use that, you wouldn't have to fly by the seat of your pants like I'm doing. It doesn't have to be this difficult. I just like to make it hard for myself, apparently. Now, my tape had been in the way, so we're going to re-ink that Better Press plate and run it through again after I move the tape. And I did a pretty good job lining that up this time. We'll slide it down, ink it up again, and you can see that instead of tap and twist, I am just sliding the ink pad across. And that worked pretty well. We're going to use that same Better Press plate with the two skinny stripes here. And I'm going to add some gold Better Pressing here. Just looking at where the stripes are and putting it between. So I've gone through and done all of that. I've moved it each time. And now I'm going to rotate it, and we're going to do some stripes in the other direction. And that's what that looks like. And now we're going to do some glimmer foiling with the Glimmer of the Month. I didn't show that to you, did I? This is the sentiment. It says Merry Christmas. Use that same speckled foil. There's a coordinating die for this, and it's a really fun Merry Christmas. It's got the Merry is very small and right above the word Christmas in this fun, swoopy handwriting style script. I'll run this through my Scout. And it does a really nice job of cutting around, and even some of the middle spaces it cuts out. Look at that. I love it. I used it a few times too. All right, card number 1. I took 2 circle dies. This is probably one of the first die sets I purchased, one of the Nestability circle die sets. So we've got a larger die and a smaller die. And then we're going to find one that is in between in size, because I need one that's just a little bigger than the inside of our little donut hole here. Stick with me here. I'm making a card that moves. We're going to do a spinner card here. So we'll need one of these for above and below this donut piece. And then I need an even smaller circle die that will fit inside the donut there. And I'm going to cut out, I think, 8 layers of that. We're going to bring out our ink blending again. I've got Salvage Patina, Mermaid Lagoon, and Prize Ribbon that just happened to be out on my desk anyway, and I love those colors. So that's what we went with. I've ink blended my little donut here. And now it's time to start assembling here. So I'm going to add a little bit of shimmer to this top piece that's going to go on top of the donut for our spinner element. And I'm using some clear Wink of Stella to add that sparkle. I was on a clear Wink of Stella kick, I tell you. So then I have all of these adorable little slippers. I could not, once this idea struck me, I had to do it. So I'm gluing one each of these slippers around this circle, and it's going to be a pick your slipper kind of spinner once I've got all of these attached. And am I perfect in getting these all attached? No. I think the reindeer's on there a little deeper than the rest, but it doesn't really matter. They do manage to fit on there just so. I'm going to have to make a giant card for this, though. I think it ends up being 7 inches square. It's all right. It can be hand delivered or put in a large envelope. Now it's time to glue all 8 of those layers of smallest circles together. Just using glue and gluing those together, and actually this dried pretty fast. And I was using 80-pound cardstock. If you used 100-pound or 110-pound, you probably wouldn't need 8 layers, maybe only 5 or 6. But you're looking for a nice height so that so your moving mechanism doesn't get caught on anything. Now I'm going to center this on the back of on the sparkly one, I think. No, on the other one. I saved the sparkly one for later. So we've got all of our little circles adhered and stacked up. I'm going to center that in our moving mechanism. And then I'll add a little bit of glue to the top of that. And once I figure out we're centered here, add my topper piece. That's the sparkly piece. And then I'm taking the little tree topper star from the stitching die of the month. And we'll add that as our pointer to the top of this. Just using my tweezer there to help make sure it stays stuck. Next we're going to add, this is one of the nice thick dimensional foams that come in the Spellbinders kits. I'm just going to add that to the back of our center spinner part. and testing that out, and it's been so nice. Next, I'm going to take a large piece of cardstock. So this is bigger than 7 by 7 inches. It's probably 8 by 8. And I'm ink blending with the Salvage Patina, Mermaid Lagoon, and Blueprint Sketch, sorry, on this large piece of cardstock. I am really loving that ink blend combination. I love that my ink pads are nice and juicy. If they are not juicy, you're going to want to re-ink or refresh or both your ink pads, because it makes this go so much faster. It doesn't have to be perfect. I then take the embossing folder of the month. This is Checkered Argyle. I must have trimmed this down to 6 and it looks like it's 6 3/4 by 6 3/4. And then I'm going to put this back through the embossing folder. So I'm lining it up, letting those previously embossed areas slide right in place, closing that up, and then I will cover the part of the embossing folder that needs to emboss again. Again, I have the largest of the platinum machines, so it does have an 8.5 inch or a 9 inch opening, so I can turn it sideways and put it through that way. If you have the space and the money, I would highly recommend the larger die cutting machine over the smaller ones, the 6 inch ones. I'm using the Snow and Ice luster polish, gilding polish. And now to make our 7 inch card base, 7 inch square card base, I cut one piece that is 7 by 7.5, scored 1/2 inch on the longer side. Crease that really well, and then we'll just glue our other 7 by 7 inch piece on top of that. And now we have a 7 by 7 inch card base. We'll take our 6 3/4 by 6 3/4 inch piece that we've ink blended and embossed and put the Snow and Ice gilding polish on. Added some extra cardstock on the back of that and adhere that to the front of our card. This is a massive card, but so worth it. Now I'm going to figure out my placement, peel the backer off that dimensional foam, and stick that down to the front of the card. And look at that. Oh, I spin, every time I pick this card up, I have to spin it several times because it's so fun. Then we're going to take the sentiment that I foiled. I think I went back and foiled this with some polished brass too, because it's just a little brighter, easier to read. And I'm using the coordinating die to die cut Hope Your Day is Full of Cozy Toes and Warm Wishes. It is such a perfect sentiment for these slippers on the front of this card. To me, it's kind of like spin to see which slipper you should be wearing. Or if you've got people wearing those kinds of slippers in the room, man, that'd be so much. Whose turn is it to open a present? Spin. I just really had a great time putting this together. I love cards that move. And this is no special equipment needed. Almost everyone has nesting circle dies in their stash and could easily create this same project. We're adhering that sentiment just below the spinning mechanism. I had to make sure it wouldn't catch on any of the little characters. And then for the inside, we're going to use, that's what it is, not Christmas, it's Holiday Besties. We're going to use one of the sentiments from the Stamp and Die set. And I'm stamping it on a piece of scrap cardstock with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And it reads, Warmest wishes for a wonderful Christmas filled with love and laughter. Once we have that stamped, all I do is stamp it twice because why not? I think it's stamped perfectly the first time. I just am in the habit of double stamping a lot. We'll use that clear embossing powder again and heat set this. Just wait for the powdery look to clear up as it melts and becomes raised and shiny. That's a great look for sentiments. And again, I like to do that with colored images too. It really makes them pop. Now that we have that embossed, we'll take the coordinating die and die cut that. There it is. And I took the penguin and the bunny. We're going to add those to the insides of the card, inside of the card. Again, we have a penguin and a bunny on the front of the card, so why not add them to the inside of the card? Plus, they're carrying treats. I think that really does match well for the front of the card. We'll put the penguin on the left and the bunny on the right. And that completes card number 1. There's a quick close-up of the inside and the outside of the card, and I couldn't resist another spin. So fun. It moves so freely, it's amazing. All right, card number 2, we're going to take some spun sugar and kitsch flamingo, and we're going to do some ink blending. Oh, and picked raspberry. We want a nice pink background. I have a full-size, well, this is I think it's probably 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of white cardstock. I'm going to start with the lightest color and blend that at least half of the way down. We'll come in with the kitsch flamingo. So spun sugar on the top, kitsch flamingo in the middle. Getting a good ink blending there. I do love to ink blend. It's one of my favorite things. And Distract's oxides they blend really well together because they're a mix of pigment and dye inks. They're a hybrid ink, which is what makes them so magical. And once I get a good blend, do I spritz this? I can't remember. Nope, I spattered it. Took some, well, it was supposed to be my clean water, but I think there was a little bit of residue in the bottom. It's all right. We'll work around it. We are using the Speckled Aura Glimmer again, and we're using the Festive Lights Glimmer of the month. And we're going to take this lovely tangle of lights, and we're going to foil that on the top of this piece. I think I must have cut this down to 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. Pretty sure I did. This plate is actually designed for an A2 size card, of course, but we know that I like to stretch our supplies. So there is the first pass, and then we're going to run it through a second time. And this time I decided to put the plate down on the platform, lay down our foil, and add the paper over the top, just kind of centering it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Oh no, this must be a 5 by 7 piece because I trim it down from there using one of the 5 by 7 matting basics. So it's slightly smaller than 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. I'm just using the largest of the 5 by 7 matting basics B set. The A set, the largest one, is 5 by 7. So we'll just line this up. I do tape it down so it doesn't move when I'm running it through the die cut machine, because I want the die to cut pretty much right up to the design element. And did it work? Sure did. Looks pretty darn good. I love that sparkliness of the Speckled Aura. I did take another of the 5 by 7 matting dies and die cut a layer of vellum. And next we're going to use the Festive Friends. You see that adorable bear. I've added some extra cardstock behind our ink blended and glimmer foiled background, and we'll add that to a 5 by 7 card base. Just using my Barely Art glue with the fine tip glue bottle from Spellbinders. Center that in there nicely. Take off any paper crumbs with the tip of my pokey tool. Using my Misty to add some extra weight so that'll adhere nicely. And on our vellum piece, I'm going to glue our cute polar bear that we made at the beginning. Just lining the bottom of his sweater up with the bottom of the vellum layer. I'll add some glue behind our star and tuck that behind his head. And then we'll take our small strand of lights, add a little bit of glue behind each of the lights, and tuck that behind the star and his ear. And the larger one, we'll add glue behind the lights on this one also. And we'll tuck it behind just above the top of his collar and across the front of his sweater. And it makes a nice swooping line. We'll add our cute little penguin so it looks like he's adding the star on top of his head or just hanging onto the star. Next, we'll add some extra layers of cardstock behind the vellum. I had added extra cardstock behind the bear and the penguin for the front, just to give that floating look to our elements. And we want to keep that going with adding extra cardstock behind the vellum. And this way we can hide all of our adhesive also. I did foil that sentiment from the Glimmer foil of the month, the Merry Christmas, in speckled aura on black cardstock. I have 3 extra layers of black thin, it's pretty lightweight. It's probably a 65-pound weight cardstock for the black that I used. So I needed a little extra. I needed like one more layer to make it as sturdy as I wanted. So I'm just adding little bits of glue behind each layer and layering them up. I use my fingers to push the edges flush with each other, getting any extra glue or any of the other pieces that I missed poking out the holes of. One more layer here for the front of this element. Oh no, I decided to go with just 2 extra layers behind that, so we've got an extra piece. That's okay, we'll use it later, I'm sure. And on the back, we'll add glue right behind that sentiment and add another layer just behind that. There you go. And now you have a place to adhere the vellum to the base of the card without getting any glue showing. So now we'll add glue to the backs of all of these extra cardstock pieces on the back of the vellum element. And my card base should have dried nicely, and we'll center this vellum piece right in the middle there. I really like how this turned out. Lots of nice, bold, cheery colors. And then we're going to pull out a sentiment from the Fuzzy Feelings add-on die set, not add-on, bonus die set from the Kit and Caboodle. It is, if you can afford to or enjoy all of the club kits, I highly recommend getting the Deluxe Caboodle. I think it's $120, free shipping, and you always get a bonus element, whether it's an extra stencil, glimmer, press plate, or another die. They rotate those extras and they coordinate with the theme of the kits that month. So I took that extra piece of the Glimmer foiled and die cut element and added that to the inside of the card and chose Delivering Furry Wishes and Penguin Kisses to the inside. Love how that turned out. On to card number 3, Merry and Bright Cloche, the stitching die of the month is what we're going to feature this time. And I've die cut 6 trees. We're going to ink blend them with Kitsch Flamingo, Squeeze Lemonade, Twisted Citron, Salvage Patina, and Wilted Violet. Maybe I only have 5. No, 2, 4, yeah, 5. So I'll take each of these trees and ink blend with with one of these Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to clean my work surface between, but I won't make you watch all of that. So here's the yellow one. These are very bright, more of a modern Christmas take. The citrus, Twisted Citron. Oh, love that color. It's still one of my favorite greens. And Salvage Patina. Now I'm going to stitch each of these also, and I use the gold thread for that. I'm not going to make you watch me stitch all of those trees, but once I've got them ink blended, I have the bases also, and after I've stitched them and ink blended them, I'm going to add the base to these trees. Now the first time I did this, you saw that I matched it up exactly because it is a die. The piercing details and the holes are a drop-in die for the main body, and the main body just creates that basic shape. Well, I decided to slide the colored portion up a little bit so you have a second layer of scallop below that. Your trees each have a little bit of a white petticoat sticking out. Next, I die cut a piece of watercolor cardstock to, this one looks like it's just over 4.5 by 6.5. I'm doing some ink blending behind where the trees are going to land. Just using the ink that's still on my blending sponges. And I have my embossing folder here. It's the checkered argyle. And I'm using it to try to audition where things go. I need to extend my ink blending a little bit so it's a little higher above the trees so you can really see it and get the full effect. I'm getting a little bit of overlapping between the salvage patina and the squeezed lemonade that really does kind of look like Twisted Citron. This one is called Checkered Argyle. It is the embossing folder of the month. Now later, I'm going to have to deal with a little bit of yellow ink on this embossing folder. I didn't realize it had transferred to the embossing folder, but there we go. I have some metallic or iridescent watercolors here. This is a nice bright gold. Spattering that all over the background, and then I'm going to take some of the white spatter from Spellbinders. This is some really good white spatter. It's pretty thick and it shows up pretty opaque and doesn't tend to take on the colors that it lands on. It's kind of like an acrylic white. So I have a little bit on my block here. I add just enough water on there to make it spatterable, and I'm spattering that like some nice snowfall behind our trees. I'll clean up my work surface, and then it's time to start assembling this. I added some extra cardstock behind this piece, and we'll add that to another 5 by 7 card base. This is going to be a landscape card. I typically do more portraits, but now and again, a landscape needs to peek in here. Add that Misty to add some extra weight. I've lined up my trees, and I'm picking them up with the press and seal to keep them in the same configuration. I've added some extra cardstock behind some strategic spots behind our trees. And now it's time to adhere them. My pink one looks like it is just a little bit crooked, and we'll fix that here in a second. I've used my press and seal to get those back in the spots that I had planned to put them in, with only a little bit of fine tuning needed. My heavyweight block adds a little extra. I figured out I needed some extra glue behind this green one because it wasn't actually touching the card base where the glue was. Next, we're going to take the sentiments from Design a Plaid Better Press of the Month and die cut those. You can see it die cuts all of the sentiments with one pass, and we're going to use Making Spirits Bright. I think that's very fitting with our beautiful rainbow of trees. I've added some extra cardstock behind that sentiment, and we'll tack that right over the green tree, and it just touches the pink and the purple trees. We're going to take one more tree, and we're going to add all of the colors to one tree, just using the ink that's still on the ink blending sponges here, going on down the line, adding a little extra, trying to blend them a little bit as we go. Now, if I had some little tiny ink blending like sponge daubers, that might have been a little easier, but this honestly was not very hard. Now that I have my cute little tree all ink blended, we're going to take the same metallic gold watercolor and the white spatter. Going to get a little more of that spatter here. I did clean my brush between the gold and the white. Sure don't want to contaminate my pot of white spatter. And spattered my tree up. I am not going to stitch this one. Next, we're going to take a sentiment from Holiday Besties. And I did first try stamping it directly inside the card. And, you know, I always mess that up. I chose I tried to do one of the Delicata inks, and it just didn't fit in with the feel of the card. So I came back with some gold Encore ink and some clear embossing powder, stamped it on a separate piece of cardstock, and we'll die cut that. That is the magic of sentiments with coordinating dies, because you can cover up your boo-boos. Just going to cover up where I had that before. We'll add our little rainbow tree right next to it. Make sure it's pretty straight. Put our heavyweight block on there to make sure it sticks good. And there it is. Wishing you, what's it say? Making spirits bright, wishing you a sprinkle of Christmas magic. On to card number 4. We're using lumberjack plaid and aged mahogany. And this ink pad is so juicy. I had to do a little cleanup at the kitchen sink to get all of the extra ink that keeps getting in the way. And then after I did this ink blending, I went and ink blended like 2 full sheets of paper with the extra ink in there just to control that a little bit. It is very rejuvenated. We'll ink blend these 2 together. Now this is, I'm experimenting again here. I'm creating this background. I'm not being particular. I just want some gradient of red here. And now we're going to take the fern gilding polish and we're going to cover this entire panel. I wasn't sure if this was going to work. Now this is pretty dry. I do go back and rejuvenate this gilding polish. I just add little bits of water at a time and stir it until it's fluffy and the right consistency. So this could have gone smoother. I have so much gilding polish on here that when my fingers touch the gilding polish, it starts to pull it up. Yeah, that's when you know you have some issues going on here. So I do make this work before I refresh or rejuvenate my gilding polish. But yeah, if you start having this problem, just know you can get this back to a more functioning product. We're going to take a 5x7 matting basic. This is the B, and I'm using the largest die. This is probably my favorite die. And the Joyful Candy Canes 3D embossing folder of the month. Look at that. I love how that gilding polish makes this like a foil paper. And now I'm going to take a sanding block and sand off the gilding polish on the raised edges. Now in theory, that means it's going to have a green background and the red will show through, at least in part. That's my experiment here. And it does take a little extra elbow grease to sand these, although I'm not using my newer sanding blocks. This one is probably more than 10 years old and very well used. So I don't know how much power it still has, but it's kind of already dirty, so to speak. It already has lots of different colors on the sanding block, and I didn't want to use a fresh new one because, I don't know, because I'm silly. I should have just used a nice new one. I got a package with 5 sanding blocks recently, so it's not like I wouldn't have more. Anyway, there is our sanded background, our very treated background. We're going to take the slippers with the legs and a sentiment from the Fuzzy Feelings, where we've used the Joyful Candy Canes on this background. We're using a sentiment from the the Better Press of Month to design a plaid. We're using Warm Winter Wishes. That's and then the Santa slippers from the Cozy Toes slippers with the Christmas tree pant legs. I've added some extra cardstock behind that embossed panel. And we'll add this to a green cardstock base. I went through my stash of colored cardstock and found a green base that would work. I thought I could use the forest background, but that's a little too blue of a green. This was the green that matched the best between the pant legs, the pattern paper for the pant legs, and the green for our background. Once I have the background adhered, we'll adhere our legs. And I did add extra cardstock behind these elements also to add a little bit of a dimension behind there. And I have one leg cocked just a little bit out. We'll add our Warm Winter Wishes below our cute little Santa faces. And now looking at this, I really wanted the Santas to be switched spots so that their little tassels were on the outside instead of in the middle. That's okay. It still looks cute. I have one more of these, and here's where I'm bringing in the white gel pen to add that highlight on his nose. I do that on all 3 of our cute little Santas, and it's very easy to add with the white gel pen. Inside the card, I did debate putting a white panel on the inside, but I think it would be very easy to use a black pen or even a dark blue one to write on the inside of this card. So I just left it green. We'll add a sentiment from that Fuzzy Feelings Better Press set. This one says, sending you fuzzy feelings and festive cheer, along with another one of the Santa slippers, this time without the pant leg. And that completes card number 4. Card number 5, baubles and festive background. That is what it said. We've got 2 different designs in this stencil set. We've got this sweater background, and then we have some baubles all over the background. We're going to use the sweater one, and we're going to make this cover a 5x7 background. Actually, this is a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock, which is what I generally start with, so I can pick and choose where I want this to die cut from. I'm using some salvaged patina on the the fuller stencil. I think I can talk. And then I will clean this off before I move it down. I do end up lining this up 3 times, and as maybe you noticed now, I had a piece of extra acetate to cover the areas that I did not want to accidentally ink blend on, so I don't get any smudges and smears on my background. It's so disheartening when you oopsie and get ink where you don't intend to. So I lined it up with the already stenciled part so that I could continue this pattern. And one more time, I'll do the same thing. I'll line up some previously stenciled area, stick it down. I was able to just pick up all of the tape and everything all at once, which was that's a time saver. Yep. And then we'll take the next part 2 of our stenciling, line that up, and I'm going to tape it down and use my spare piece of acrylic again, or acetate, to I'm really trying very hard to line this up very carefully so that I have the cross hatches, or the contrasting portions of this. It looks kind of like an argyle, but it also looks kind of knit. I'm going to take this Snow and Ice luster polish, and that's what I'm going to add on this portion. This did not need rejuvenating. I think it was my only gilding polish that didn't need rejuvenating. This one's still pretty loose and soft, easy to work with. I started out using the sponge applicator. I end up, what did I do? I used my finger next, and that works. And then I think I ended up using my palette knife. Whatever method you want to use, but you just want a thin layer that goes inside the stencil. This gilding polish dries pretty flush. It doesn't create a whole lot of dimension, which is perfect. I love that. And it dries very quickly. It's very easy to scoop this out of the little pot also and slide it around. It's almost the same. I'd say this one is just a little looser than the lunar paste. And if you had astral paste, that's the glittery stuff. That would work really good for this too. I don't have any of that yet. I waited for that layer to dry completely, and then I came back with the stencil, relined it up, and I didn't have to overlap at all. So you don't have to do 3 lineups for this. Yeah, it's just what made the most sense for the first one for me. I'm taking a palette knife, and I'm using a smaller one. You could use the that wide silicone applicator if you wanted. I think you might know what I'm talking about. It's a stencil tool. But I decided to keep it small so I had a little more control, since I didn't want to accidentally get it on the part that I already stenciled, and I didn't lay a piece of acetate over that part. I didn't want to risk any of the gilding polish sticking to the acetate. Even though it feels like it's dry, it might have been just a little bit tacky yet. And any excess I'll just put right back in that little pot. I do have to take this down to the sink and clean it thoroughly before I move on. Now, this was kind of a mistake for what I was wanting to do this for. I did make it work. This is the Frozen Fog Distress Mica Stain Spray. And I spritzed it over the entire piece. I was probably a little heavier than I want. Maybe I should have just spattered it instead of spraying it. I'm going to cut this down with that same 5x7 matting layering die. And look at that. It is pretty. And I had been going to use it with the cloche, but the cloche looks so crisp and tidy that I decided I did not want to use it with that. That was the background that I intended, or the main element I intended to use with it, but I'm going to change my mind. It's okay. We can change our minds. I've added extra cardstock behind that layer. We'll add it to the front of our 5x7 card. And this is where I'm looking at this and thinking that it just doesn't fit the feel of this card. Yep, changing my mind. So I'm going to take that same Frozen Fog Distress Mica Stain Spray, and I'm going to spritz a piece of white cardstock. I want that color and shininess, and we're going to use one of the Arch Labels and Tag dies to die cut a space for our main image to rest on. We're going to use another one of the Bear and Penguins from the Festive Friends Die of the Month. And we're going to use some Festive Lights Glimmer of the Month, the Sentiment, glimmered in black. I'm going to just kind of dry fit this together and trying to figure out what I want to do here. I decided to take the checkered Argyle embossing folder to add my some texture to this card, or to this card stock that's going to be his sweater. Now a little bit of the yellow transferred on here. I don't know if you can see that on the video. I can see it a little bit in real life. It makes it look more like a cream color. And then I'm just going to adhere the neckline of the sweater, and I didn't poke out the extra bits this time. I left those in place. I thought they were just fine right where they were, adding some extra texture. And I made a brown bear this time. I glued that to his head, and we're going to take our long piece here and adhere that just below the neckline. And we're going to make this a circle of lights around him this time. We're not going to do the S swoop like we did with the first one. Just going to use my heavyweight block to keep that in place while it finishes adhering. Add a dot of glue behind or on the ends of the small piece and join it to the large piece, and then tuck it under the neckline. And there is our circle of lights. We'll adhere this to the arched piece. This is a fun wonky little arch. It's not the perfect it is symmetrical, but it bows out a little bit as it goes up and then narrows even more towards the top. It's kind of fun. Now this penguin looks like he's just hanging on by that strand of lights. We'll add some glue to the back of the black sentiment, the black gold on black sentiment. Need to make that a little more stable. I think I only put one extra layer of cardstock behind this. Now that we have these pieces all assembled, it's time to add them to the front of the card. There is, of course, some extra cardstock behind our arched label die here. We'll add that to the front of the card, a little higher than centered, leaving some space for the sentiment to go below it. I'm using the grid mat here to make sure I'm getting that as straight as I can and evenly spaced between the two sides. Adding a little bit of glue behind our sentiment. Love that fine tip glue bottle. The fine tip makes it very easy to add glue behind these delicate words. I think black was the right choice. I think white would have just blended right into the background. Inside the card, we'll take that fuller stencil and do a rough inking on the inside. I don't want any real sharp ending of the design. I want it to just kind of blend or fade out along the edges. And then we're going to take a sentiment from the Holiday Besties stamp set. I've added this to my stamping platform that is open on two sides, and I'm using some VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink to add that sentiment to the inside. And that is card number 5. Card number 6, we're going to start with that 5x7 Matting Basics die again. I use that a ton. I love a good matting die. We're going to use an older embossing folder. This is the Sparkling Snow 3D embossing folder. This came out last year, but man, it's so pretty. Next, I'm going to take the Pearl Luster Gilding Polish. And I believe I had just refreshed this, so it is very loose. It's not like runny, but it picks up a lot of the gilding polish very easily on our sponge applicator. It looks fantastic. You all know I love this stuff. I use it over and over and over again. It's just amazing. So I'm adding some of this Pearl Luster Gilding Polish to the raised snowflakes on this plain white piece of cardstock that I've die cut with the 5x7 matting die. And that creates a fantastic backdrop. This is what we're going to use for our cloche. I had some extra cardstock behind the snowflake background, and we'll adhere that to our 5x7 card base. Just making sure that's lined up nice and even. Add my Misty to add some extra weight. We're going to use some snowflakes from the Layering Snowflakes and Frozen Flurries background panel. I have a bunch of snowflakes left over from when I created with this before. Then we're going to use that Merry and Bright cloche to with the element that I created at the beginning of the video, and we'll just adhere that to the front of the card. I did add a little bit of extra cardstock behind that before I adhered that down. I have an assembled layered snowflake that we're going to put down towards the base of the card, or the base of the cloche, and then we'll take a few of the other snowflakes and add those. I'm adding one to the center of that layered snowflake. Then I'll add another one to the left of the tree and one right to the right of the top of the cloche. I'm trying to decide if I need more snowflakes, and I decide to add some of these Crystal Mix Color Essential gems. These are self-adhesive gems. I'm using the tip of my tweezer here to pick up some of these gems, adding them to the centers of the snowflakes in various sizes. I think there are I think there's 4 or 5 sizes of gems on these sheets, which is amazing. So I'm just going to add these tiniest gems a little more scattered. It's a good thing they include 3 rows of the tiny gems because I think those are my favorite, to be honest. I love to add a smattering of these little tiny gems. Now that we've completed the front of the card, I'm readjusting the placement of that one. Now it's time to put something on the inside of the card. I have 3 more snowflakes from the cover plate die that makes so many beautiful snowflakes. And so you get double use out of that die. We're going to take another sentiment from the Holiday Besties, and we're going to use that stamping platform that has 2 open sides, so we can put that in there. Wishing you a sprinkle of Christmas magic is what that says. And that's card number, is that number 6? Okay, card number 7. We're going to use the Baubles and Festive background stencils, and this time we're using the Baubles portion. I have an A2 size piece of cardstock here. This is my sticky mat from Altenew, and we're going to use Squeezed Lemonade, saltwater taffy, tumbled glass, and twisted citron for some really bright pastel fun. We're also going to use the Lisa Horton Cloud 9. I think this is the Sweet Treat Interference color. We're going to start with the Squeezed Lemonade and the saltwater taffy, and we're going to ink blend individual baubles with these. I'll take the next stencil that does the bauble toppers so I can get the placement just right. That's my theory. So I put the first set of baubles down. Now I'm going to do the bauble toppers in the Cloud9 Sweet Treat, which is yellow on white and pink on black. So I like this metallic look that we're going to get, and these are super nice and juicy. They sold out when they first released these on Spellbinders website, and I believe they've restocked all of them, almost all of them. The limited edition came back, gold, silver, copper, sold out. They restocked it. I think it sold out within an hour of it being in stock again. So I missed that window again. So I'm going to come back in and add some, what am I doing? Am I adding the toppers there? Yep, I'm still putting the toppers in, trying not to get it in the bauble section. All right, now it's on to the next group of baubles. We're going to use the Twisted Citron and the Tumbled Glass to fill in those baubles. These sponge ink blending sponges work very well for this. Peel that layer off, and yeah, looking pretty good. I'm loving this, but I want there to be a little more depth. So I went and grabbed some darker inks. This must be, well, I'm not even sure what color I grabbed. I grabbed a darker of each of these colors. So a little bit darker green, so probably Mowed Lawn, and maybe Mermaid, Saltwater Taffy. I bet that's Saltwater Taffy. No. Not Saltwater Taffy. Why am I drawing a blank? One of the darker blues than the Tumbled Glass. Salty Ocean. That's what I was thinking. And then a little bit of probably Abandoned Coral, maybe? Or Worn Lipstick. Worn Lipstick and Wild Honey, I think, is what I used. And I think that looks much better with some shading. And because I am spatter obsessed this time, I'm spattering with that gold watercolor again. If you had the, what's it called? Yasatami? The watercolor pots that they have from Spellbinders, those are gorgeous. And one of these days I'm going to spring for them, but I have this palette, so I feel like it's not a high need for me. I spattered it with some spatter white. And now it's time to do the inside of this card. I'm doing a 4-bar card here, which is 3.5 by 5 inches. And I decided to do the inside of the card similarly. I have a piece of acetate covering the left side of the card. And I've used my Altenew sticky mat to hold the stencil while I'm adding ink. And I'm doing selective inking here again, just doing a different color for each bauble. I'm not going to do any shading this time. I am adding the toppers. Oh, there's the ring topper and the topper. There's a 2-piece topper going on here. Now I have to line this back up, and I finally get this lined up, and we'll do some careful inking of the other part of the topper. Now that I have that stenciling complete, I cut this down to about 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, added some extra cardstock behind that, and am going to glue that down to our card base. And we will use a sentiment from Design a Plaid Better Press of the month, and one of the sentiments from Fuzzy Feelings, the bonus embossing, Better Press of the month. So we'll adhere the Joyous Noel. I don't know how you actually say that in French, but I'm going to say Joyous Noel. I'm using my T ruler here to make sure I get it nice and straight. I did add extra cardstock layers behind the sentiment to help it stand out. And then on the inside, we're going to add the sentiment, Hope your holidays sparkle with joy and happiness. I had Glimmer foiled that with polished brass on a white cardstock. On to card number 7. We're going to use the Joyful Candy Canes and this Precision Layering Mini Slimline. I'm going to die cut the layer that measures, I believe this is 3¼ by 6¼ I'm going to take some distressed mica stain, mica stain sprays, Frozen Frog, Flickering Candle, Tree Lot, Holly Branch, Peppermint Stick, and Yuletide. And I start out by trying to dab out little bits with the stem of the sprayer, and then end up just pouring a little bit into each of the pots on this little paint tray. Whatever I don't use on this project, I'll be able to use at a later date. Even if it dries out, I can just add some water and reconstitute it if it dries out completely. I'm using a number 2 watercolor brush, round watercolor brush, to add this color to the raised areas, and that is the completed painting. This video is already so long, I could not bear to add 10 minutes of watercoloring. It would have been 5 minutes if I sped it up by 4. It took me about 20 minutes to paint this panel. I'm using the leftover Flickering Candlestick and Frozen Fog to spatter all over silver and gold. And then I'm going to also use some white spatter and spatter that all over the front of this also. And I love the speckly look that creates. This is, it was a lot of fun to paint this, to be honest. Love it. And painting with the Distress Mica Stain Spray on, this is watercolor paper that I use to do the embossing, and then to watercolor it. It's just, it's so pretty. Just saying. And then I have the wax seal of the month here. I swear I showed you how I did these. I guess not. It's not in the video. Well, it's the usual with the melting 2 different colors, heating my, I will try to link one of my many videos with wax seals that I use to create those. This one has the gold on red. On to card number 9. Well, it's actually not a card. I'm going to make 4 tags / ornaments. And I have 4 trees here because we need one for each of them. And this is the Byzantine Green Glitz ink pad from Hero Arts. They just came out with these. They came out with a rainbow of colors. I get the My Monthly Hero, or whatever it's called. They just changed it. But I get that every month also. I have been a faithful Hero Arts follower for years and years and years. Anyway, I'm going to use this ink, which has a little bit of a gold shimmer to it for mica stain, kind of a mica type shimmeriness. There you can see that, to do our trees. And then we're going to use the cute little characters from the holiday besties. We've got our snowman, and we're going to coordinate him with some tumbled glass distress ink, or distress oxide. And the bunny is going to get some salvage patina. And the bear is going to get lumberjack plaid. Here's that brown bear that I told you I colored. And the cute little penguin's getting kitsch flamingo. And those match their accessories. So I'm going to take the base of each cloche and ink blend them with the coordinated colors. And the base of the cloche, we're going to, with the Snowfall or Starry Night die cut, we're going to ink blend darkest at the base and lightening up as we get towards the top. So I've got the kitsch flamingo, and you can see the way that shows the white backer very nicely. This is the tumbled glass. Again, just doing the base, a nice heavy inking, and then starting heavy at the base of this cloche main piece and lightening as we go to the top. Salvage patina. I'm loving this more modern look here. Ooh, this is a juicy ink pad. I love a good juicy ink pad. Love it. I would rather have it be too juicy than not juicy enough. Just saying. And then our last color is the lumberjack plaid. And I really like this for a Christmassy red. It is a beautiful Christmassy red. And then we'll do the base. Again, heavier at the bottom of the cloche and making it lighter as we go up. And you don't have to worry about it being super perfect. It will look beautiful. Next, I'm going to stitch this with this, it's almost like a baker's twine, but it's crochet thread that has some gold detail wrapped around it. And I did that for 2 of the trees, and the other 2 trees I did with a really bright green. And I also stitched the bases of each of those cloches. That takes a lot of time to do, that you don't want to watch when when I've already showed it to you once. I have cut, there are 2 sentiments in this stitched die set. We've got the Sending Cheer, and we have Merry and Bright. So I've cut 2 of each, and I've added that to the base of this bunny one. I have assembled my trees with that extra little petticoat of white sticking out there, and I did discover that the trunk slides nicely under the green portion and over the white portion. So that's an option too. I didn't use it on this one, but I will use it on some of the others. I added a little extra cardstock behind our cute little bunny, and we'll add that on the base there. We'll put our blank white piece behind our colored portion, and then I pulled out my crocodile. I'm going to use the smaller hole punch and take a small mini brad here, not mini brad, it's an eyelet, the smaller of the eyelets, and I decided to try putting an eyelet on each layer. So I used a kind of a brass colored one and an off. I have so many of these eyelets, and I just used some of the neutral ones to, I wasn't really picky. I just grabbed, because they all seem to work pretty well with this set of tags. And it, it just makes it look nice and finished and gives it a little extra reinforcement. So we've got the 2 layers here, and that works great for a tag. And now I'm going to assemble the tumbled glass and the snowman. Just adding the snowman here, I did put extra cardstock behind him too. I'm trying not to be too repetitive here. This time I'm going to punch the hole and do 1 eyelet through both layers. Again, using the smaller hole punch. There's a larger one too. I do have larger eyelets, but I decided to stick with the small ones because we don't need anything larger. Again, these could be ornaments or tags or both. You could add them to a package, and they could use it as an ornament later. I'm using some twine from my stash. Honestly, I'm not even sure where I got this twine. It could be a Concord 9th from a kit, could be Stampin' Up, could be Hero Arts. I'm pretty sure it's something that came in a kit though. Then we have our little bear. Again, going to punch a hole in the top. Add a brad here. I thought a darker brad would look better on this particular design. We'll add our twine again. Sometimes I'm really good at choosing a length, and sometimes I go a little long. Sometimes I tie a knot just up at the top, and sometimes I tie a knot at the base so that you can tie it on to something if you desired, but it's long enough that you could tie a knot at the top and hang it on the tree too. I'll just show you again. That's the best way I found to attach that bottom piece is to add the glue to the not stitched part and then glue that down. We glued on our sentiment. We have our tree. I'm going to glue that down, and then the tree trunk. Again, this will tuck nicely over the white frilly part and under the green part. I think that looks pretty cool. And then we'll add our cute little penguin, add our backer, punch a hole with the small portion of the hole punch for the crocodile. This is the same crocodile I have had for I don't know, since they came out. Still works great. Add my twine at the top. I'm going to knot this one at the base. And then I thought, they're very cute. There's lots of great detail, but there's a lot of empty space on them. And I thought about putting a second sentiment, but then I decided to put some aura opalescent sequins on them. So I'll just add, I threw a scattering of sequins on each of these. I'll add a little dab of glue to secure each sequin. And I'm just going to show you one of these because I'm pretty sure you don't want to see me do 4 of them. That is the bunny one. There's the finished bear, snowman, and penguin. And at last we have reached card number 10. I'm going to use Holiday Besties for the main image, Fuzzy Feelings for the sentiment for the inside of the card. I'm also using the Glimmer of the Month, which is Festive Lights. I'm using that Merry Christmas that I've foiled in the aura, speckled aura, and die cut. And then we're going to use the Better Press of the Month, Design a Plaid. That's that background I created at the beginning. And then Essential Arches. We're going to use a couple of those to do our framing for our main image. I've taken some Spellbinders specialty cardstock and the speckled aura foil and made a solid piece of cardstock of that speckled aura. I die cut the larger of the Essential Arches with that, and then some white cardstock, and ran that through the joyful, the 3D embossing folder of the month, and have that raised detail for that. And now it's time to start assembling. I've added some extra cardstock behind that plaid background. I had die cut that with the 5x7 matting die in B, the largest die from that. And now I'm going to add some extra cardstock behind the arch and add that behind, add that to the front of the card, centering that roughly on the front of the card. And I'm going to use my T-square ruler to make sure that that's nice and even, because I can't trust that my plaid lines are straight. We'll take our embossed panel that I've added a little bit of extra cardstock behind and add that centered inside our very shiny Essential Arch. Then we'll take our little bear that I cut an extra layer of that, actually 2 extra layers of cardstock in the same, with the same die as the main image. And I did the same with the Merry Christmas here. I have 2 extra layers of cardstock behind that also that I've glued together. I figured this video was quite long enough. You didn't necessarily want to see me gluing all of the layers together. Now that we've finished the front of the card, we'll do the inside. We have a sentiment. This one says, sending you fuzzy feelings and festive cheer. I've laid my little bear down so I can estimate where I want this layered on the card. We'll add some glue to the back of our cute little bear and put him right above that sentiment. And that finishes card number 10. I had a blast creating with these club kits, and there are so many more ideas to be had. There are so many great cards made by other people too already. I would love it if you left me a comment telling me what you enjoyed most about this video, and let me know what you feel, how you feel about that green card. Let me know if you like that background as much as if you think that worked out. If you're interested in any of the product that I used today, check that description box below. It'll be listed and linked as always. Give this video a like. Subscribe if you haven't done that. And until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.